We'll call the meeting to order. We have an agenda before us. Does anybody have any additions or changes?
So through the chair, request addition for correspondence. So there's four. There's a Rocky View letter, which should be circulated, a rail safety week, the Hope Bridges Foundation request, and a correspondence from a ratepayer in Division 1.
We'll put those under 4.1 through 4.
Okay. Ratepayer correspondence for Division 1.
We'll do Hope Bridges 4.1, Rail Safety 4.2, and the Rocky View letter 4.3, the ratepayer correspondence under 4.4. Jason is going to read it to us.
Thank you very much.
And then you had some closed session.
Yes. Additionally, in the closed sessions, we have 5.3. It'll be a land matter, water and wastewater servicing. Section 5.4, a development matter. And 5.5 will be a property matter.
Any other additions? A motion to approve the agenda. Councillor Clausen has moved. All in favor? Motion is carried. Just a note, the meetings may be recorded and posted on Wheatland County website or via social media. We had the minutes circulated from our regular council meeting of August 20th. Did anyone see any errors or omissions?
If there are no errors or omissions, I'll move the.
Councillor Eichert has moved. All in favor? Motion is carried. We also had the minutes from the public hearing, well, from several public hearings on August 20th. A motion to approve.
So moved.
Councillor Wilson has approved. All in favor? Motion is carried. We also had the minutes circulated from our September 3rd regular council meeting. A motion to approve. Councillor Bigger has moved. All in favor? Motion is carried. We have a public hearing. I'll move that the process for the Wheatland County Council meeting as it pertains to the scheduled public hearing will be as follows. Public hearing, first reading if required, then consideration for further readings of bylaw for those public hearings that have been closed. I further move that the above process will take place with the absence of resolutions to go into and out of council before and after the public hearing. All in favor? Motion is carried. I'll call the public hearing for bylaw 2019-21 to order. I'll ask if any member of the public has an issue with us sitting. And just ask staff to verify that the public hearing was circulated in accordance with the MGA.
Yes, Madam Reeves.
Thank you. And were there any written submissions?
None received.
Thank you.
So before you, you have an RFD with regards to the public notification bylaw. On August 20th, the regular meeting with council. Council moved first reading, of course, as you can see within the public, within the RFD. In accordance with council's directions to search for cost savings, we have looked at the public notification bylaw, and obviously, as you'll see in the financial savings, there's a expected $16,000 annual savings and a more expeditious and seamless process for our public notifications.
Any questions? I will close the public hearing for bylaw 2019-21. Council discussion. Anybody have any thoughts?
I'll move second reading.
Deputy Reeve Kester has moved second reading. Discussion? Questions? I do have just personally some concerns just around some of our ratepayers that might not access the internet regularly or have good internet connections. Some of our seniors that maybe rely on the newspaper for information. I appreciate the cost savings. I'm just trying to weigh that with the public. I don't know what council's thoughts are on that.
But we're not going to put anything in the papers?
It just wouldn't be, I'll let staff speak to it.
Yeah, sure. So a couple things. From the community and development services side of things, where we typically utilize this quite a bit, we do go above and beyond, and we will continue to go above and beyond in terms of circulation and notices. So we will utilize. In the MGA, there is no shall. So we shall. There was no shall, we may. So we do go above and beyond to circulate and to get those notices out and to deliver door by door, but also to put into our published print. So we will continue to do that. The cost savings are the $16,000. If we do not continue to do that, we will have substantially more cost savings. But at this time, we will continue to go above and beyond at this point from that perspective.
Well, it's not going to be in the paper.
It will from a community and development services side of things. But we do have some social media channels and some digital that we are pushing really hard, and we're modernizing as we continue to from that communication side. So, if we do in fact hear that we are not receiving, or we're hearing from ratepayers, if there are concerns, if there are some oversights, then we will revisit, of course.
I don't think the 16,000 is going to hurt us that much to put it in the paper. There's still a lot of them out there that don't have anything to do with this stuff.
Reeve Link, if I may, just the communications officer would like to speak as well.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So through the chair, we currently advertise through the Strathmore Times on a weekly basis, and as you'll see in your backup, that is a very limited distribution area. So to be able to reach all of our residents on a weekly basis, we'd have to actually advertise in 3 newspapers: the Strathmore Times, the Drumheller Mail, and the Bassano Times, I believe. So currently we're not reaching all our residents as it stands. So this bylaw would allow us and give us the opportunity to advertise, of course, through our website as a legal means of notice. And with residents that may not live in the county necessarily, they may live outside of our county and just have a property within our boundaries, they wouldn't be getting the newspaper anyways. And we have some ratepayers that live not even in our country that would have no idea what's going on nearby their property. So of course, they would still receive an adjacent landowner notification when applicable. But this bylaw would allow them to be able to go to our website, see what's going on. And this isn't to completely eliminate the ability to advertise in the newspaper, it's just to supplement it. So we certainly can do kind of a headline with our regular newspaper ad stating this is something that's happening at this property, see our website for more information. That's kind of the idea behind this bylaw. So, and it just gives us the ability, more flexibility than just utilizing the newspaper. Thank you.
So with that as well, if someone has a concern, they see something like a highlight in the paper, they still have the ability to phone the office. If they're not web savvy or whatever,
Yes.
they still come and get a package.
Absolutely.
Paper explanation from staff. So it is a little bit of a change, but I see the merit in this, so I support it.
Any other discussion? Yep.
A few years ago, when there was a Strathmore Standard, Wheatland County, that was our official notification. We paid for to mail it to everybody that was a ratepayer. And that ceased. And that was our official notification because it went to everybody. And since it ceased, I've not heard one comment about negative about suspending that service. I had more happy comments than not, but that's a different story. So if we're going to have an official notification in the Strathmore Times and it doesn't go to everybody, I think that's a bad optic thing. Internet goes to everybody. I'm in favor of doing the internet. I'm in favor of the bylaw because it reaches everybody. We can still supplement, like you said, and they can always go to the official notice. And I think in this day and age, everybody at least knows somebody that can get them the information. Yeah, so for that reason, being that inclusive to everybody, I'm in favor of the bylaw.
Any other discussion? Just a clarification, on page 34, under the map of the distribution area for Strathmore Times, it notes that additional subscriptions paid by Wheatland County are mailed to residents outside of this area for an additional $600. Did that cover the rest of the county? Or that's just a few? Okay. It seemed really low, so I was trying to... I didn't think we were that sparsely populated. Any other discussion? So I think if I understand correctly, the official notification will be online. We still will be continuing to use newspapers to put the information there, but not necessarily the big official notice with all of the details they can reference. So that helps some of my concerns, as long as I have, through the 2 years, heard of people that they were glad to read something in the newspaper or whatever. I do know we still have ratepayers that rely on that and enjoy your page of news, so of course.
Oops, sorry, through the chair. Just to add something, this is through the MGA only, through that section 606. So there are, of course, other regulations, other acts and whatnot that we have to or mandated to provide notice through, like the Water Act and whatnot. So this doesn't cover that act. This is just through anything that would have to be advertised under the MGA. So of course, yeah, we'll still utilize the newspaper for other required notices through other acts.
Great, thank you. Any other discussion? All in favor of the motion? Motion. Deputy Reeve Kester.
I hate to hold up the process here, but I got kicked out again, and oh, finally, there come, never mind, go ahead. Nope, just a minute. I can't get this sucker to give me anything but the agenda, it won't. Oh, here it comes, okay, go ahead.
Okay,
It's coming now.
consideration of third reading.
So moved.
Councillor Wilson has moved. Any discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you for bringing that forward. Under 3.1, we have Rural Municipalities of Alberta 2019 Fall Convention. I did see that the draft agenda has been circulated. Everybody has a copy. Does administration need any information about that, or was it just to circulate the draft agenda?
No, so through the chair, it's just a confirmation on the registration. So there's been 7 councillors and 2 admin registered for the event. Accommodations are already taken care of. The Partners Program, obviously, if you wanted to partake in that, is available. As well, there, if need be, yeah.
Wish you would.
Also, there's been a request for meetings with both the Minister of Environment and Minister of Transportation. I don't believe we've heard back on either of those for dates. We've sent a draft agenda to them of what topics we'd like to speak about. So that, I think, is, I think we normally hear back early October on those meetings regardless. So.
Okay, perfect. Any questions? A motion to accept for information.
So moved.
Councillor Wilson has moved. All in favor? Motion is carried.
I'll get with the program here. I'll start doing some work. I won't let you carry everything here.
3.2A, we have the Speargrass Community Association sign design. Good morning.
Good morning. This is just from the CURB funding for the Speargrass Community Association, just their design proofs they were supposed to bring back to council for approval.
Council have any questions?
This is curb funding, was this recommended by our curb board?
Yes, it was recommended by the CURB board and approved by council, and it was just to bring the actual design proof back to council for approval. It's just for the design
So
proof,
it's
the
really not
funding,
for the funding, it's for the design?
just for the design of the sign.
Okay.
I'd like to move that council approve the attached banner and sign designs for the Speargrass Community Association.
Councillor Bigger has moved. Any discussion? I have to say I love the designs. I think they really capture like the community, and I think they're beautiful. Yeah, they're absolutely beautiful. Any other discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you. We have an RFD regarding Alberta Development Officers Week. Good morning.
Good morning. So before you, you have a proclamation just requesting council to sign declaring the week of September 23rd to the 28th, Alberta Development Officers Week. That week in particular, there is a province-wide Development Officers Conference happening in Drayton Valley this year. So our development officer will be attending that. And it's an exciting week for that profession.
Wonderful.
Why do, no. Never mind.
What's that? Okay.
I'm with you, bro.
Council's wishes.
And so, can I have a question? What actually, like in one of the other proclaiming the week of, they kind of list what benefits come from proclaiming this week? Is there any benefit, like what are the benefits? Do they list anything? Is this something new or?
I think the main thing it says is whereas we recognize development officers and their commitment to public service.
So it's just a recognition?
It's a recognition.
There isn't any action plan behind
We
it?
just get them flowers.
So ultimately, this is a standard resolution that most councils undertake, be it the various professions, right? So it's just a recognition of the work that's being done. That's the benefit.
Okay. Well, I will move that council choose option one, approve the request to sign the proclamation declaring the week of September 23rd to 28th to be the Alberta Development Officers Week.
So that's the only week we have to
Yeah.
thank them for what they're doing? We don't have
That's
to do it the rest of the year?
time, yeah.
It's like Mother's Day. You love your mother every day, and
Yeah, they're all just, never.
God,
Anyway, I did the motion.
whatever.
any further discussion?
Is the county liable if we miss any of these professions?
Through the reeve, no.
No? So it's, okay.
Sorry, Matt, we're not trying to be assholes.
I might add that, I mean, our memberships, they do send us these, right? So these are just standard proclamation weeks that councils pass. So that's how we get the notices.
Fair enough.
So another question. Do we have to do this stuff? I mean, this is all, I guess it's feel-good stuff. But most of this stuff is just like, I don't think we abuse our in this case, we shouldn't be abusing our development professionals, our development planner. I mean, we do all this stuff but it really, are we not, implicitly supplying, it's like you said, I love my mother. I don't really need a day to tell her that if I tell my mother, or I told my mother that on Mother's Day, that was the only day I loved her, that would be sort of, so I'm just thinking, could we not just save a whole lot of time if we just
Well, when I
forget
read,
this stuff?
Let's do it for a
If we
year.
just approve them quickly?
here.
Yeah, well, yes.
Sassy.
Yes.
So I did look at it to say, okay, we are trying to commute our development permits and our officers and that department. If we're trying to form a relationship with our ratepayers, this is a good time to put the picture on the website. This is your developer officer. Maybe they can get to know him better. Maybe it's an opportunity for the most positive thing I could think of that would come out of this would be that the communication officer has the ability to say, this is our development officer, this is what is this week called?
Development Officer.
Development Officer Week. And we salute Joe Blow. So,
Time for you to get ahead.
yeah. And I think that would be a positive way of this week.
And I understand that. It's just that this seems so, for lack of a better word, sort of contrived. This is not why we were here. Like, my ratepayers don't care if I have train safety week. They don't really care, but it's brought for us and we have to wave our hands.
Call the question.
So, yeah, call the question. Yeah, I'm babbling.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried. Opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you for bringing that to our attention.
Yeah, thank you very much.
And please express our appreciation to our development officer.
Absolutely.
And I really do like Councillor Bigger's idea. I think it would be nice to highlight that and just bring some awareness to our public for what they do. We have an RFD regarding an updated quality management plan for safety codes.
So before you, obviously the QMP, the Quality Management Plan, this is a new version of the QMP, and the update is just strictly verbiage. And it's to be consistent with the updated Alberta Building Code that was updated in 2014. So we're just bringing this QMP to council for a resolution to update.
We're not adding anything, we're just updating our, right?
Just to keep it consistent with provincial regulation, or
That's
update it
correct.
so it is consistent.
Yeah, that is correct.
Council's wishes.
I'll move.
Councillor Armstrong has moved. Any discussion?
I just like to see when things are changed, kind of a highlight of what it was and what it is. It's just better for me, so I can know instead of reviewing the whole document.
Absolutely.
We take the high view, right? So just for future.
Would
You would lay out the new one and the old one in line by line?
No.
would council want me to bring back a supplemental attachment just to review? Okay.
I think for this one, it's all right. Going
Just
forward,
for-
it is
I know in
helpful
the
just to
past we've seen
highlight.
that where it's highlighted changes, just it makes it easier because then you focus on that for certain things. so.
Good point. Any further discussion?
Just along what Scott has said, if there's been any changes that but this is just updating it to what's currently in place, so if you've got the code, that's what's in, so, but any additional, yeah, I agree with you.
I mean, the whole package is covered in 1.0, scope of accreditation. After that, the rest of it is just, I mean, it tells you we are following the building code and everything else. We need one page. That's sort of all you need, but.
Although it might be helpful for ratepayers to have all of them in one spot to access.
Okay. Have to read the other ones. Follow the other ones, whatever we decide to do.
Any other discussion? All in favor of Councillor Armstrong's motion? Opposed?
I voted in favor.
Sorry, I didn't see. Motion carried. We have an RFD for safety policy, 10.1.
So good morning, Council. Before you have the safety policy, section 10.1, acting as an overarching policy that outlines the commitment and management that Council has to the health and safety management system. So if you recall, our previous Council meeting, we had that discussion about our safety policies and updating them, rescinding some, but also providing that commitment statement by Council. So this is just an update to bring to your attention for that matter.
Great, thank you. Council's wishes.
I'll move the proposed safety policy 10.1.
Deputy Reeve Kester has moved approval. Any discussion? I just want to say I appreciate the work that went into it. I think it encapsulates what I hoped it would, and just that recognition and commitment to safety. So, any other discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried. There's an RFD for a request for a refund for utilities.
So before you, Council, you have an RFD requesting the refund in the credit of $1,700 on the subject mentioned utility account, and it just falls under the general policy of accounts receivable cancellation collections. It's a standard RFD that we must bring to Council for approval.
Council's wishes.
I'll move that council approve the refund of $1,700 for account 4099.03.
Any discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried. Under correspondence 4.1, we had a letter from Hope Bridges Society with an invitation to their 14th annual Artists Among Us Fall Gala performance on October 20th at 3 p.m. I am hoping to attend. I don't know if anybody else would like to.
Back to you. I think it's a great program.
Yeah, it is
Yeah, it
an
is.
incredible program in the community.
Sorry, can't hear.
I just said it is an incredible program in the community. Councillor Bigger was just saying it's a really good program.
I will check closer to the date.
Okay. Maybe just get back to me if anybody else would like to join me. A motion to accept his information.
So moved.
All in favor? Motion is carried. The Director of Government Affairs for Canadian Pacific, Mike Lavecchio, reached out and has requested that we consider declaring September 23rd to 29th Rail Safety Week.
Here we go again.
We can't, we're doing the other one.
I think they can run concurrently.
I don't think they can.
Our energies will not be so involved in Development Officers Week that we can't also focus on some rail safety.
Trains are big, you're small, be careful.
I think, again, it just could be a good opportunity for our communications officer to highlight some rail safety through our social media. We do have a lot of rail through the county, and there can be safety issues that arise. So I think it's good for people to be aware.
Yeah, no kidding. Old Larry. Oof. Did you ever meet Larry? Guy.
I don't know.
I know who you're talking about now.
I will move that we declare September 23rd to 29th Rail Safety Week in Wheelan County. Any discussion?
Hope the dev officers aren't insulted.
I just have a comment. I know that the railway company has a bunch of coloring books and stuff like that,
Yeah.
that maybe they should be sent to Carsland School.
Oh, that's okay.
And maybe this week, so we could do it every year, if they would agree to that. I don't know how we go about doing that.
We could probably reach out.
Both of them,
Yeah.
Yeah, schools all through the county.
Yeah,
That's a good idea.
good idea for all the county.
Great idea. Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. So at a previous meeting that I was at with Reeve Belkey from Rocky View County, he indicated that their council was writing the letter that we've had circulated. They did send it to Premier Kenny as well as the full cabinet, as you can see on the back, and their MLAs that govern their municipality. Reeve Belkey did ask if Wheatland County might consider drafting a similar letter if council so wishes, and also sending it to the government of Alberta.
I'll move.
I just wanted to say that after reading the letter, I think he's made very valid points, and some of the concerns that I have as well. Being sitting at the table as CMRB, the focus is not, it is regional, but when it comes down to dollars and cents and projects, it goes where the people are. I mean, the transportation projects that I looked at, they're 30 years out, and there's really nothing east of Calgary. So you kind of wonder, yeah, it is nice to be there, but maybe 100 years from now, it'll be good for County Wheatland. I think we could help our partners out here a little better, working together on our own. There's no doubt that Calgary has issues and needs to work with Airdrie and Chestermere, Cochrane, the big urban centers, but the counties in between kind of get drug into a fight that we need to look after ourselves. And there's so much, like he's saying, they're taken away from him, from Rocky View, and it's very true. It's control. And they have every right, Rocky View has every right to service however they want and offset their tax base. So, and it's already come where they've stopped, trying to stop it, so I support that.
Any other discussion?
Just one comment. I'm just trying to find it here, but there's the
Turn your mic on, Ben.
counselor from,
Sorry.
council, I think it's.
Jody Gondek.
From Calgary, and the comments that they made in the Globe and Mail about Calgary trying to get out of the CMRB.
I'm not sure that that is just from my brief look at that meeting yesterday. I'm not sure that that's the view of the majority of their council, but there was certainly that one councillor that expressed concerns as well.
Wondering how long it's gonna be around. If Calgary's starting to push to get out of it, guess what's gonna happen? If that ever gets a hold of their, it'll disband anyways. If they're
I
not
think
part
from
of
what
it.
I read, Mayor Nenshi was arguing pretty strongly for continued regional planning from his perspective. I'm not sure. I'm assuming that was on behalf of the majority of their council.
What's the chances he's there in 2 years?
Deputy Reeve Kester.
That was in the back of my mind when I asked for that meeting with Strathmore. I don't know if they have accepted it or not, but I'm hoping they do. And I would prefer to wait till after that meeting with Strathmore before we draft a letter. I totally agree with Rocky View, and I'm thinking we should send one up too, in review of the minister's recent comments especially. So I'm thinking maybe would be nice to talk to Strathmore first, because they are.
So just a couple of updates regarding that. Administration did reach out to the town of Strathmore, and there's just been some challenges determining if the first date that Mayor Fuel and I determined may work will work for the majority of their council. They have AUMA starting the next day. We're potentially looking at September 23rd, and so travel arrangements may be impacting their availability for that date. I was hoping maybe if we take a break that we could come up with some alternative dates as a council that we could present to the town. Mayor Fuel was certainly willing to have the conversation and seemed quite open to what we had discussed. But of course, he'll need to take that to his council and administration. Just as an update as well, we do have a request in with the Minister of Municipal Affairs just to follow up with our CMRB meeting with him. And administration is currently just waiting for his scheduling assistant to have his availability so that we can schedule. It does look like we'll likely have to go to Edmonton if we wish to meet with him.
Fine.
So we are working on that. Yeah, that's all I have.
I guess for our meeting with Strathmore, if it would be possible to get an updated financial cost of this CMRB to the county.
So I know
I know what
GM
budget is.
Boscariel has just done some, I don't know if you're prepared to share that, some rough estimates on what we're investing in the CMRB year to date.
For sure, yes. So as Revelink mentioned, I've been pulling some numbers and getting something together. It's not finalized yet, but a ballpark is approximately $150,000 year to date that has been spent, bringing into all of council's participation in meetings, averaging out times, time per week that administration spends on CMRB work in addition to traveling to meetings. So it is quite substantial.
How much did you say?
150,000.
How much did we have in the budget?
So we're breaking that down too because a lot of that is put into operating, right? So this is salary time
Some of it's staff time.
and staff
that's been
time, right?
allocated.
So we're taking the operating dollars from salary and putting that towards, in terms of a methodology, averaging out per week how much administration spends on CMRB, researching, drafting memos, drafting reports, attending to emails, in addition to taking the per diems of council, as well as all the time that council will spend, some councillors who are heavily involved spend on CMRB, and putting that into a breakdown for council's
So
consideration.
So some of it's an actual cash cost, some of it is just lost productivity because you're focusing on CMRB and not
Correct.
Wheatland County specific issues. That number is fairly consistent with what I've heard from Rocky View, Foothills.
We had 700,000 in the budget, I think. So we're not going to get anywhere near that spending.
So I'm not prepared to determine, like, in terms of breaking out the operating dollars for the budget for CMRB. But as I said, I took the salary wages
Right,
and
right.
averaged those, right?
Yeah.
To come to a year-to-date
Yeah.
number, including council in that as well, but breaking it all down.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. That's good, thanks.
My position would be that, my preference might be that council consider sending a letter prior to our meeting with the town of Strathmore. My reason being is I think this is a fairly time-sensitive issue. I think the minister could be considering this even prior to their release of their budget, and I'd rather we get our official perspective to the minister as soon as possible. Particularly, I believe he's indicated he's not available prior to the legislature sitting, so that would be October 8th when they go back. So we know we aren't going to be able to meet with him probably for the next 3 or 4 weeks anyways, and I'd rather get, I did share some of our perspective at our CMRB meeting with the minister, but I'd rather formalize that from our council for him.
Would we not be better off, and I agree with Glenn, to send them a letter stating that we have no issue with what they're doing, but we aren't willing to sign anything until we've had our meeting with Strathmore?
I'm just curious, we want out whether Strathmore wants in or out or not, so
Right.
what does that change on the letter? Whether we meet with Strathmore or not, we want out, and I think that's very valid to point out to the minister. It might mean more coming from two municipalities, but we want out. If Strathmore wants out as well, we can deal with that issue when we meet with Strathmore. But I agree with Reeve Link that it's a time-sensitive issue.
Yes, Deputy Reeve Custer.
Not to be condescending, but that's old news. We've been fighting this and we've always said we want it out. We've had all other 9 municipalities support us with the minister that we don't know. Yeah, send a letter. Yeah, we want out. But we've never had a partner with Strathmore, a partnership meeting with Strathmore, where we are both thinking about it. Strathmore supported us not being out, but to send a letter, it's time sensitive, it's old. It's a new minister, yeah, send a letter, it's not gonna hurt anything. But I think it's important from a partnership point of view that we include our partners when we do something. And if we don't include our partners all the time, every time, then it doesn't send a good message to our partners. I value Strathmore's opinion, and then they should be free to make up their mind, but they should hear our reasons too. And we've never really had a good meeting with Strathmore. We're always fighting the CRP, then the CM. We were always trying to push our agenda. We never really had a good meeting with Strathmore. And I think looking back, we should have had that meeting. We tried, we talk, yeah, and we visit back and forth, but we never had a council-to-council meeting for the objectives, what we really wanted. And I think that is important. And if they can meet, it would be great if we could meet before they go to the AUMA and they would have a flavor when they go up there. But when we can meet, we meet. But I think for me, this meeting with Strathmore, and when I look at the map and my past conversations with the ministers and the planners and about Strathmore being disconnected from the regional plan. And when you look at the map, that's how it is drawn for Wheatland County, just surround Strathmore and give them a corridor. So for that reason, I think it's, for me, that's our next step, talk to Strathmore. And if they don't want to, whatever, that they make up their own mind, but have them part and we can discuss back and forth.
Councillor Wilson.
I'll move that we send a letter very similar to Rocky Views to all those CC'd ministers and the Premier of Alberta with our issues being in the CMRB.
Further discussion?
Clarification, is this a letter of support of Rocky View or?
I think we would draft our own letter, just with our own rationale for the minister.
I understand where Councillor Kester is coming from, but it doesn't make any difference to the County of Wheatland, I don't believe, whether or not the town of Strathmore is on board or not on board. There are massive reasons, many reasons why us belonging to the CMRB is not productive. They cannot, I do not believe they can bring forward one real reason what benefits us to belong to this board. So I agree with drafting a letter laying out why we like Rocky View need that this, why our presence in the CMRB is even required, and yes, have a meeting with the town of Strathmore, and it will, if the town of Strathmore decides that the CMRB membership isn't advantageous to them, that they send their own letter and join it. But I don't believe that we in the county are on board having to stay here, and I don't think we're gonna. The fact that Strathmore stays doesn't change our opinion. I don't think so.
Perhaps what we could consider too is following our meeting with the town of Strathmore, we could consider sending a second joint letter if there was agreement that it would be best for this part of the region to have our membership revoked in the CMRB by the ministry. I realize this is old news, and it's been a consistent message that Wheatland County has been bringing to the government of Alberta for many years. What's changed is the ministry and the government that's in place. And what I heard strongly from Minister Madu is that he has some difficult decisions to make about the CMRB. They're looking at the funding of it, and I really get the sense from this government and their caucus that they're listening and that they want to hear from all municipalities, including the rural municipalities. So I think we're at a really key time to share those messages with our provincially elected officials.
I think with this, the motion's on the floor, so I don't want to vote against the motion, but I don't want to vote in favor of it either, because it depends on what the letter is going to state. And if I don't have a problem moving this forward, if our letter has something in there that states, I don't know how you would put it, but that we're still of the same opinion that we have been from the start. We still want to deal with our neighbors or within our locale, and we still want to meet with Strathmore, and we're not eliminating Strathmore from our, simply because we're following through with this. But we need that stated in that letter to them so that we can show Strathmore that we're not leaving them out of the discussion. It just happens that we haven't been able to sit with them yet. Well, I would be in favor if that's the way our letter was drafted, but otherwise, no. But I don't want to go on record voting against it, because then that says I don't want to get out of Calgary, the way the letters.
So just to clarify as well, because I haven't submitted my report for the month, I have reached out, and Mayor Fuel and I did have a really good conversation around this issue, and we do have some shared concerns, he and I as elected officials around the CMRB, and I did also just discuss some of what we had discussed as a council, that we do want to be responsible in terms of sharing some of our shared servicing expenses, whether that's around recreation, and we already have agreed to renegotiate and look at the CRISP funding for all of our urban municipal neighbors, including Town of Strathmore and the villages. So I did reiterate that commitment to Mayor Fuel, and I think from a budgetary perspective, it's easier for us to allocate more funds to things like that if we're not having these significant expenses for CMRB. So just so that everybody's aware, those conversations have occurred, and Mayor Fuel and I had a really good conversation. He did say that if it's, I know their scheduling can sometimes be challenging. If it wasn't possible, we agreed to bring our two councils together, that perhaps we could both get kind of the intent behind our councils, and then Mayor Fuel and I could meet again to further discuss it. Deputy Reeve Custer.
I agree with Ben. If the letter mentions our continued reluctance to be part of, I was hoping when we talked to Strathmore, we would draft a letter jointly of the joint drain it is on our economies when this money could be better used locally. We don't see any perceived benefits. We are getting hit with less municipal funding from the province. Our linear is under attack, and of course more costs may be coming down from the RCMP directing. Our population base doesn't take much of a hit, but our linear has to pay for a WAP. So everybody wants a chunk of the linear. And I was hoping once those issues with this new minister, we would voice after our meeting with Strathmore. The meeting before Strathmore, we can say our continued resistance, but it's hard to make a combined letter on the combined impact to the region. If Strathmore doesn't want to be in, we can always write another letter more similar to what Rocky View has wrote on what the impact, the cost coming to us, and we'll make a business case out of it. That's where my thinking is.
I think
the business case would come with a meeting with Strathmore after, and if Strathmore doesn't meet, we can still make our business case. Right now, we can say as in past, we're still reluctant and we don't see the advantages and all that. I don't see the advantage of making two business cases, one before Strathmore and one after. I find that I'm sitting up there reading these letters, I would like to have, looks like we thought it out and we're moving forward in a predictable way. And I'm like, Ben, I can't vote against the motion, but I haven't seen the letter yet either. So I just caution from my perspective to.
Of course.
So something that we could mention in a letter is saying, because we're in the CMRB, we don't have to have an ICF with Strathmore. And would solve a lot of these issues with Strathmore. And if we're out of that, we mandated by the province to have that. So that would individually put them on the same level playing field as everybody else within our county boundaries. That's an easy win right there. Because of the CMRB, we can still have that if we choose, but it's not required. So that would, I think, solve that.
Yeah.
And that would solve a lot of the issues that we've had, long-standing issues with Strathmore, about funding and things like that. Definitely, we need to have a meeting with Strathmore. I still think we should have something going forward while there's concern. If maybe we can meet with Strathmore before, I think we should discuss that. Scheduling for sure, because we might be able to meet with them sooner than we think.
If we can meet by next Monday, it's only
Yeah.
half a week away.
Yeah. Because I think now is the time, from what I've heard about the minister and the comments about the minister's future funding and how it's going to be like it's standalone, I have grave concerns over that. Being, I'm always what you put in, you should get something out, and I don't see that we're going to get a bunch out of there as the county of Wheatland. Strathmore may have a different perspective that we don't know, and we might be able to help that in a different way. I don't think they realize, Strathmore Council might realize the resources we do have. We can help them, if we choose to work together. And I think that's the only way we're going to get out of that, is if we do choose to work together with the bigger center.
Just one further point I want to clarify. I heard Deputy Reeve Kester mention just the kind of collective impact that a joint letter might have. A different perspective to look at it from is the collective impact that receiving letters from potentially what I've possibly gathered at recent meetings is perhaps half of the municipalities in the CMRB may be sending letters or making requests to the minister for this membership to be re-examined and for them to be considered to be removed from the CMRB. I think that has a pretty significant impact on the ministry if they can receive letters from those municipalities. That's not confirmed, but that's potentially what I'm hearing from other municipal leaders. So, yeah, I just wanted to mention that.
After being at the meetings on servicing side, it's pretty clear if we wanted wastewater from Calgary, we're not going to get it. They don't have water. I mean, the mayor was just on this morning saying, 2030, they're at their limit, 30, 38 or something like that. So their focus is on themselves, very clear. So I think Strathmore would be better off to work with us. And same with Rocky View, they have we're both in the Red Deer River Basin that has access to water that Calgary doesn't.
Any further discussion? We do have a motion on the floor, and perhaps just as part of the motion, perhaps administration and I could draft a letter and we could circulate it to council for consideration via email, just in case there's any amendments or things we've missed that points people would like to make. I would like to draft it similarly to Rocky View County.
Very similar.
And just outline, I did have some additional things that I had expressed to the minister verbally at our meeting at the CMRB that we might be able to integrate into a letter.
My personal opinion, I don't believe Strathmore needs to be mentioned in the letter.
Well,
Personally.
Rocky View does mention that they are committed to working together with regional
Yes.
neighbors. So I think we want to emphasize that in our letter because it's a priority that I've heard from our council.
Going to meet with Strathmore and do that, I don't think.
No,
it's
I think
necessary.
just, for me, the important thing is to emphasize that we are committed to working with all of our neighboring municipalities, the town of Strathmore for sure, but also our villages and through our IDP work and the ICFs that will come with, even our the rural municipalities that surround us, so. Any further discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried. There was some ratepayer correspondence.
Yes, I did just send a picture to everyone, including Margaret, so she can have it. I will read the letters out. Maybe not Brittany's, it's very long. Robin Harms has got a hold of me. There's animal nuisance and unsightly property where the old UFA is, which you probably don't know where that is, Matt, but it is the intersection of 561 and 842 on the southeast corner. And I will read out Robin's number. Email, sorry. Good morning, Jason. As a concerned ratepayer and animal lover, I have an issue with what has been happening on an acreage on the corner of 561 and Highway 842. I've been observing the property since January of 2019. And is it okay that I read these out? I should ask. Well, it's too late. It's too late.
Yeah, it might require flipping, so if you can avoid any reference to
Okay.
through the chair.
Okay, sounds good.
So-
I'll do my best.
No names or
This is not from anybody.
Or
no
locations.
numbers or addresses or things like that. If you can just make it more general.
Through the chair, I don't think, she phoned me last night too, and I don't think she cares if her neighbor's
Yeah.
out there, because it's not just her, there's quite a few
There's
of
quite
them
a
out there
few.
that are upset about it, and you're gonna be getting some letters from them too, so I don't think it's gonna be an issue to her.
Perhaps though, just instead of reading the letters, can you just summarize the letters that you've received with sort of the general concern?
Well, they're a little upset that SPCA hasn't been able to act on any of the issues. I did just get a text, and SPCA was out last night. So, but I was just curious if, when there is issues with other bodies of government, as always, not doing their jobs, if we could just always keep them to the ropes and make sure we send letters as a municipality encouraging to do their job.
Yeah, so through the chair, what we can do is contact the SPCA on behalf of the landowner here and just find out the details of it. As you know, it is a little bit touchy to be enforcing different levels of government
Yes.
through our own mandate here. So we'll correspond with the SPCA and this landowner and
And I sent you the letters as well, so you
yeah, I have them here for sure.
their contact information. And
Follow up on it.
I don't know what we can do as a municipality, but I yes, go ahead.
I'm just thinking about this with, have them come here and present to us what their standards are. When they go do a site inspection, what they see, maybe there's different things we're not aware of. Maybe what someone thinks is neglect in their opinion, the SPCA, for whatever reason, they can't enforce something. Because things change all the time.
Because I mean, if many of you probably haven't drove by the site, but Ben has, I have, and it's become
For
quite.
council's information, before we changed our land use bylaw, we had an animal units portion in there, and they were restricted from owning. There was the same thing going on there, and they were told to remove the animals under that bylaw, and that was taken out because they said we didn't have jurisdiction over that. So it isn't just happening, and I just got one from one of my ratepayers along the same line, from another, not from Harms, but from another one. So they're starting to send the emails in about the condition of the animals there, so.
And there is a picture attached, and that horse was tied up there for a number of hours just to a telephone pole. So there is big issues, and if we could just have bylaw patrolling out there, maybe that would incentivize them a little.
So let's let administration look into, sorry, go ahead.
So 2 weeks ago, my weekly staff meeting, we did talk about this specific site, and Protective Services is well aware of what's going on. That weekend, it was 2 Mondays ago, so that weekend, one of the CPOs was at a joint meeting actually, and there was a discussion about this level of jurisdiction, SPCA, and Right now, I do know there is another case sitting at a provincial court level, and I think it is stayed at this point. There is discussion about this. This is one example in our county of many in other municipalities. So it is a jurisdictional quagmire right now, but it is on our radar, and we are looking at it and monitoring it from a protective services perspective. But you are in fact correct. We do not have an authority to enforce under that land use bylaw, taking out sections of the LUB where we can't enforce. So that was in fact one of them, but it is on our radar and we are well aware of it. And we can continue having some presence there.
That sounds great. Thank you. A motion to accept as information.
So moved.
Councillor Wilson has moved. All in favor? Motion is carried.
Through the chair, could we, these emails that we're getting from some of these residents, could we draft an email to send back to them, explaining to them what we're doing in this situation?
You can follow up for sure. That's
a good
through the chair,
idea.
like I say, we'll follow up. If you have another one.
I'll
you could do it.
just forward this to you guys and you can, okay.
That's a great idea.
Animals are gonna die.
All right. We have a 10 o'clock appointment. I'd like to welcome representatives from the Strathmore RCMP. Welcome. Good morning. Just the one button there. We've simplified.
All right, I just don't want to mess it up. Good morning. Again, I'm Sergeant Salmon with the Strathmore RCMP. I'd like to introduce the new commanding officer for the Strathmore Detachment. It's Sergeant Suk Randawa. He's going to be here for the foreseeable future. And after this presentation, he'll be the one up here in the hot seat, not me. So,
Welcome to our area. We're happy to have you.
So I have just a statistical report to give from June to August of 2018 versus June to August of 2019. So I'll just run through those stats. And if you do have any questions as we go through, please stop me and ask. So traffic collisions, we saw an increase from 46 to 52. Provincial statutes, including tickets, only tickets. There was an increase from 673 in 2018 to 816 in 2019. Drive while prohibited offenses decreased from 4 in 2018 to 1 in 2019. Impaired driving, we saw a decrease from 14 in 2018 to 6 in 2019. Traffic warnings, so aside from just all the tickets they got, some people actually got warnings. We went from 19 in 2018 to 52 in 2019. Our provincial statutes excluding tickets, so these would be our Liquor Acts, 911 Acts, the Coroner's Act, Mental Health Act, Trespass Act, and others. We saw an increase from 43 in 2018 to 49 in 2019. Our municipal bylaw non-traffic, we saw an increase from 1 in 2018 to 7 in 2019. Assaults, we went from 7 in 2018 to 13 in 2019. Sexual assaults, we saw a decrease from 2 in 2018 to 1 in 2019. Crimes against persons, these are the threats, robberies, and extortions, where there was no change. We had 5 in 2018 and 5 in 2019. Firearms Act, we saw a slight increase from 3 in 2018 to 4 in 2019. Our controlled drugs and substances investigations, we saw 4 in 2018 and 0 in 2019. Our other criminal code violations, so failing to comply with conditions, failing to appear at court, causing disturbance, etc. There was no change, where we had 11 in 2018 and in 2019. Theft under, so we saw a decrease from 23 in 2018 to 15 in 2019. Theft over $5,000, we saw a decrease from 12 in 2018 to 6 in 2019. Possession of stolen property charges, or investigations, we saw a decrease from 9 in 2018 to 4 in 2019. Mischiefs were the same at 15 in 2018 and 2019. Frauds went from 3 in 2018 to 5 in 2019. Break and enters, we saw a decrease from 10 in 2018 to 8 in 2019. And our common police activities, these would include things like suspicious persons, animal calls, false alarms, lost and found items. These went from 126 in 2018 to 82 in 2019. Assistance to general public calls, we had 19 in 2018 and 32 in 2019. And then our victim services rates, we saw an increase in the accepted victim services offers from 5 in 2018 to 8 in 2019. We saw an increase in the declined acceptance of victim services from 14 in 2018 to 30 in 2019. And we saw an increase in our proactive referrals from 2 in 2018 to 5 in 2019. So overall, our investigations or calls for service for that 3-month window. In 2018, we had 1,089 calls or investigations. In 2019, we had 1,237. So there was an increase, but most of that was directly related to the provincial statutes, the tickets and whatnot that were written in the area. So those are our stats. I guess before we go on to anything further, were there any questions about those?
So it looks like some of the crime statistics have decreased.
Yeah.
Ones that
I would say, looking at that, it appears that some of the criminal code aspects of our job are either steady or decreasing, which is a goal. Obviously, that's what we want to see. This is, again, just a snapshot. This is a 3-month window. So,
any questions? Deputy Reef.
Yeah, morning. Victim services declined. Is that because of limited funding, or is that other factors?
No,
qualifications?
What happens is we will offer victim services, and they have the option to say yes or no. So it's completely up to the victim whether to accept that or not, and they just said no. So when we go back to our investigation, one of the things when we're marking it down is a yes or no to victim services, and that's just to track that. So.
I took it the other way, that they were declined when they requested it. But.
Yeah, no, we didn't. We never say no. Victim services will never say no. They're more than willing to help whoever. It's just up to the person whether they want to accept that assistance or not. And some people feel they don't want that. So.
Any other questions?
Curiosity on the traffic information here, is that including the portion of highway that drops to 80? Or is that sheriffs that have stats?
Are you talking about Chestermere?
Yes.
I wouldn't have stats for that. That wouldn't be part of Wheatland County.
Okay.
This is just for Wheatland County. That would be part of the Rocky View County.
And for curiosity's sake, because I get asked this, so that portion of highway where they're doing that, the funds from that, the revenue generation, does that goes back to Chestermere?
Yes, that portion, almost that entire 80-kilometer-an-hour section, is actually within the city of Chestermere town limits, and so the ticket revenue from that would go back to the city of Chestermere. Strathmore Detachment does zero enforcement in that area because it's not our jurisdictional area.
As I drive it every day, or my guys, we see it every single day. Like a revenue generation spot. Personal opinion.
Thank you. Any other questions?
So going forward, we'd like to change the way we present this a little bit. We can get a report done through Edmonton that will actually show some crime trends and how crime has changed over a 5-year span, essentially. but we would need to change our schedule for coming before council, just a little bit. So essentially, we would need to push it off into, so if the quarter ends in January, we would need about 3 weeks to get this prepared and into present. Would that be something that you guys would be interested in seeing, as opposed to just here's the stats that's got some
I think to
graphs
see
and
the
stuff?
trends would be really helpful. I think that would be great.
And Sergeant Randawa can speak a little bit more to that.
So every quarter, we do get stats from the Operations Strategy Branch, which is based out of Edmonton. What they do is they collect the stats from all the detachments and their county areas or the jurisdiction. And those stats are sent over to Ottawa to be analyzed and generate a report. That report is then sent to the K Division headquarters, which is the RCMP headquarters in Edmonton, and then disseminated down to the detachments. I believe that that report is a little bit more detailed. It's a very clear picture of what's happening in your county, and it's more presentable. So we're moving forward. We would like to go into that direction. And like Jay explained it to you, so if we can have the third week of every quarter, after every quarter, to present that report to you, that'll line up everything, because we usually get on the second week after the first quarter or after second quarter. Those reports gives me a week of time to review it, analyze it, prepare my presentation to you. So moving forward, if we can schedule something on the third week, that'll be awesome.
I think that sounds great. Council? Yeah, we'd
And
really
we can at
appreciate
least have
that.
a set schedule for the entire year, then when are we coming and presenting that?
We really appreciate how actively you've been engaging with our council.
Thank you very much. Any questions for me on that?
I think that's all I have, unless there's
Okay.
any other questions.
Just thank you both for attending the Rural Crime Town Hall last night as well. We appreciate that. There was some good discussion, and we appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll just take a 5-minute break. Actually, a motion. Thank you. Deputy Reeve Kester has moved to accept the report as information. All in favor? Motion is carried. We'll break for a 5-minute break. Is council
Yes.
okay with that? Yeah. Call the council meeting back to order. And just a note, council would like to recognize previous councillor Don Vanderveld. Residents may have recently seen that the Wheatland flag was flown at half-mast. It was lowered in memory of Don. He served as Division 3 councillor from 2007 to 2017. We send our condolences to his family and friends during this difficult time, and are grateful for his service to Wheatland County. As per Don's request, there will be a celebration of life, which will be held on Friday, September 20th, 2019, at Carsland Community Hall at 1 p.m. In lieu of flowers, it's been requested that donations can be made in his memory at the Wheatland and Area Hospice Society. I believe our next agenda item is a closed session matter regarding human resource policy. So I'll move that we move in camera. All in favor? Motion is carried. Great. We have an 11 o'clock appointment with Mr. Grande representing Teradyme. Welcome. Morning.
I'll be very brief. You have a letter, I think, in your packet, just a request to deal with Origin Business Park. The developers there are working to try to get things fixed from the past. They've not received FAC on phase 1 of the development. They're out there again today dealing with culverts and some of the outstanding issues that are there, and they're hoping to be able to get toward FAC very soon. They had hoped to be able to do the final lift on pavement this year, but God has blessed us with this wonderful moisture, and things have been delayed, and so they don't think they're going to be able to get to it this fall. They need 5 degrees and rising for a period of a week, and I'm not sure that's going to happen anymore this year. So they want to be able to get into the ground, or get onto the pavement, I guess, as soon as possible in the spring, get their FAC and complete phase 1 of the park. One of the outstanding items, though, is the stormwater. As you know, it's been an ongoing issue, and the full plan was designed so that, there's a bit of a peak in the land right by the weigh scale, and the water runs to the west down the hill and makes its way down to the far west pond. There's a pump there then that is supposed to pump it up to the second pond up probably 3/4 of the way through the first phase. And then the plan was that then there was supposed to be another pump that was going to pump it to a much bigger pond over on the east side. That pond has not yet been dug. And that's what they would like to do, is they'd like to dig that pond, put the final berm in along the highway to complete the irrigation system, and have a system where they can move the water. The current stormwater, this is really loud. The current stormwater plan is, I think everybody that's been involved in it says that there are some flaws in it, and the engineers are going to be working on that over the winter to try to resolve that, because right now it calls for individual ponds on every lot, and I don't think anybody wants that. It's much better to be able to move all of the stormwater to one place. So over the wintertime, they will be working on the engineering to redesign that so that there are no more individual ponds required on, well, at least most of the lots. And so they really want to wrap this thing up. They got a financing from Canadian Western Bank. We're all excited that they were going to be able to put this stormwater behind them, and then CWB came back and said that they would not be financing the securities. So they've raised some money, independently, third-party money. I have a check for $900,000 that I would dearly love to give to you and get it out of my house.
Just put Jason.
Sure, okay. Can you change your name to Wheatland County LLC or something like that? Sure. So they would dearly love to do this, but we acknowledge that they are still short of that. But it's about 1.8 million that's required to give the full 125% securities on just this outstanding storm pond. So they're requesting that you take the 900,000, get rid of the stop work order, and let them finish that irrigation system and the stormwater system.
Were your engineers going to do this engineering just so they can get it done, or
the
at their own expense for the eliminating all the small stormwater? I know it has to be approved and stuff, but the engineering part, that work you were going to do as part of your development?
Yes, through the chair, that's correct, yeah.
Okay.
They looked at it and they thought, well, we tried to get some amendments into the existing one, but it just wasn't possible. And so they said, really, for the park to function well, the engineering needs to be redone, or modified anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions?
I'm just trying to, so you guys give us the county a check for $900,000. You start the work on, that $900,000 stays with the county? I'm just trying to figure out like how we can, like, this work has to be done. Can we, as long as we have the 900,000, they're doing the work, is that sort of not, like, I just don't know what, I think you know where I'm coming from.
Fair enough. So that's good. Maybe a little background, if I can just give a little overview of where we're at and how we've come to this place. So we have the west side of that development, phase 1 we'll call it, was developed in 2008, 2009. Primarily the grading and stripping and grading and development was focused in that area, but there was portions of the east side, which is phase 2, which is, you see east of that property there, was stripped, there was deficiencies in the amount of material that was in that side, so they couldn't fully finish the construction of that. So at that time, phase 1 was deemed complete. Phase 2 was basically left as is. So what we have attempted to do with this reintroduction of this development here is to finalize the phase 1, which still has a few areas of deficiencies, including the top lift of pavement. We do hold securities for $282,000 for that portion right now. But we asked for a revised construction plan for the east side there. So Idea Group through Teradyne there has submitted a construction estimate on what it is to build that side. And we've gone through it, we've reviewed it. There are a few areas that need attention, but for the most part, we've come to the understanding it's about $3.6 million to $4 million in construction of that area. I guess going back to the securities, this was implemented by council probably in 2015 as basically a security to ensure that prior to that we had asked for only 100% of the value of construction as a security through the development agreement. We find as these developments take longer to finalize, the cost of construction goes up. Us, including a lot of other municipalities in the province, have gone to a higher than 100% security. We settled on 125, which was pretty comparable to others in the province. Speaking with our counterparts, it's nothing out of the norm to ask for this percentage of securities. So we're looking at 3.6. It's about 4.2 million in securities is what we've requested. So we have, after speaking with Mr. Grande there and the troubles that they're having acquiring that, we have looked at compromises, some allowances we can give as far as looking at, we're only doing the earthworks right now, we don't have to look at the utilities, we don't have to look at the asphalt. We can reduce the securities down to just the earthworks, which will resolve the stormwater problems, and the grading problems, while still not giving them full allowance to fully develop and sell those lots. So we were looking at a reduced securities of around, I think, 1.7 million is what we looked at for earthworks and landscaping and underground, because a lot of this is a pump system between the storm ponds. So we've gone from that 4.2 to around a 1.7, which is what we feel is acceptable risk for the county to take and still have the monies in place should the developer not be able to meet their commitments through this. So that's just kind of a background, the last year, I guess, and a half of discussions we've had with the developer on this.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm just trying to figure this out in my, but so we're going to have, we've got 262,000 somewhere in there. They're providing 900,000 as a security deposit, but they're doing all the work, right? We're not actually, the county is not actually going to be doing any of the work for this, doing the storm ponds and all that kind of stuff, right?
Well, through the chair, depending on if the work does get completed, we would take that security to complete the work if it isn't finished.
Right, but the majority of the work right now, if this job were to go ahead without any hitches, Origin would do all the work, have all the work done, and we'd have at that end of time, we'd have $1.7 million in securities that is going to be sitting there, right? Because if the work is done correctly, we don't come off of that. We don't take any of those securities, right?
They're released once the FAC is received for the work being done. Then they're released back to the developer.
So through the chair, technically, we reduce the securities up to 75% at CCC at construction completion, but then we have a 2-year warranty period. So we have the developers requesting a 900,000 plus the 282 we have on right now, so around 1.2 million we'll have. And that's where I say we estimate, and this is a very, very high level estimate, not knowing the current conditions out there, of around 1.7 worth of work just to bring it up to a standard. So through the chair, you could say that we had 1.2, but we're estimating 1.7. So we may still be deficient in being
that's-
able to finalize this.
But that is if nothing gets done. That's right now. Like, that's if their company comes in, brings in their earth movers, and they spend 2 months doing this, they've already done a whole bunch of the work then. And if they walk at that point in time, we still have the $1.2 million, don't we, in order to finish a job that is $1.7 million? Is that not correct?
The job is 1.2 something. The 1.7 comes from taking the extra 25% for potential increased cost over the course of the project.
Right. So all I'm saying is, does that not, understand, I'm coming from the point, I want something done there. I don't want to get any more calls from Mr. Bolt. I've had enough.
Understood.
You know, and so I would like, I just want, if, I understand the guarantees, and I understand the securities, and the first phase, in my mind, we should be able to cut these, like the first phase is this big chunk, and then after that, I think, should we not be able to sort of phase this thing into smaller increments so that, you know, like it's like a I used to do these all the time and I lost my mind. Like when I'm doing a building, I get a
Installments.
Progress.
I get progress draw. Thank you very much. And, you know, so, and on big jobs, we've had to, where I couldn't finance them, we've had to chop these things into a whole bunch of different places. It's more paperwork, but everybody gets guaranteed at that point in time, right? And I'm just wondering that we still have $1.2 million on the books if we take his check and we have somebody willing to do the work, which we're not paying to do the work, right? Like we're not contracting these guys they're doing the work on their own. Mm-hmm. So, you know, if we have oversight at that point in time, I understand we're sort of stepping out of our comfort zone, but I don't see where in my mind, don't see where the real big drawback is. So that's my 2 cents.
Right. And so it's, just so I can clarify here, through the chair, by the estimate submitted by the developer here, we have 600, well, we've done a few reassessments based on some numbers that I think the developers agreed that we need to look at a few numbers here. So we have around 800,000 in earthworks, 500,000 in underground, and 200,000 in landscaping. So all up in about 1.8 million worth of construction at 100% cost that needs to be done for, I mean, we can't really do this in phases. We have to open the whole site up because we need to the developer needs to dig storm ponds and use that soil to grade the lots. So it's one big package. So we looked at phasing. We looked at, is there any way we can cut this up into smaller segments, do a half of the site at once and only take securities on that. We've come to these, cutting out the asphalt, cutting out the electrical installs are acceptable to us to have the site fully disturbed, but still have the money to finalize it. So that's where I say we have around 1.7 million of full cost construction on that site, and we will have 1.2 million in securities. For sure, we've done progress claims. We do progress claims. Muirfield, 100% from day one was a reduction in their LO's letter of credit all the way through the construction. As they met a certain criteria, put in this many manholes, we reduce their, we do that, and we've made the offer for the developer to implement that as well. That's what I'm saying. We have more work proposed in this site than we will have securities from day one.
It's already been phased.
Exactly. So, and that's where it comes to the request to council to reduce that money that we have. So we will be putting ourselves more at risk by not having the money in place at the time, whatever happens, that we need to move in and finish the work ourselves. We wouldn't have that money in place.
So my understanding, or maybe just clarification, when these projects are ongoing, we give them the go-ahead to do whatever. Do we have engineering that checks in once in a while and says, okay, it's going the way it is. And if there's any issues, reports back to yourselves saying that it's going south, we need to get on it. So we have oversight pretty much on a weekly basis as a, yeah, and so.
Through the chair, correct, yes.
Yeah, okay. I understand too, I've talked to some other developers, and it is quite a challenge to get money for this right at the moment because financial institutions are tightening their belts. And I understand that because of the economy and whatnot. I want to see this go. I want to see this development move forward. There's been historically a lot of problems. We are sticking our necks out a little bit for this, and I understand that, but I do feel that it's taken on a new life there. I drive by it every day. I've seen that actually people are, it's improving. Someone's actually taken and trying to get it moving forward. So I'm okay with doing this. It's not something I want to do every day, but I understand the 125%. I understand that whole process. I used to be in your shoes and understand that. So
question process. Say we have our full securities and work goes ahead, some deficiencies, we use the securities, we fix it up to the way it's supposed to be. Your securities are gone or used proportionally, but you still own the land, right? And you end up with a piece of land that's worth more money. So now if we cut a break on the securities and the thing goes north for whatever reason, and the county's out of hand $500,000 to bring it up to what we wanted. We had to use our own cash to fix up somebody else's property. Can there be a deal made that if this thing goes north, you relinquish your property?
Doesn't that go south?
Or a percentage of, or put a lien on the property? Because I'm thinking you're going to be selling lots or something, we would have an interest that way. I'm not predicting it's going to go south, but it's another form of security. We're taking land.
Yes, through the chair. It is something that we did discuss and we were ready to do. The land is quite encumbered with the CWB financing to do all of the construction. At this point, in a sense, the land is worthless because there's a stop work order on it and nothing can be done. And so certainly the county, has the ability to stop it from being sold. I guess the other thing to say is that I think for a project like this, in the future for putting the continuation of Durham Drive through, I would say absolutely go 125% on that. You run with your standard policy. But for something like this, where in a sense it's remediating work that should have already been done, I think every step the developer takes toward that is an improvement. And it's one step closer to it being done. And they've got the money to be able to do that. They've got the CWB financing to do all of the construction and more, but we're just stuck on this point. So in terms of putting a lien on the property, we've certainly offered that. And it would just be an expense of registering it on every title in the park because it's already been subdivided. So, and for something that probably, Mike, you'd know better than I'm guessing it's 30 days. They're in, they're out, and they're gone because snow's going to start flying here pretty quickly. So,
just a comment. I do agree with previous comments from Scott and Tom, but just for my own curiosity, you guys have looked at liens. Have you ever looked at other types of securities like bond security and everything like that?
Yes, we have.
And just what was the issues with there? Because isn't other municipalities starting to take bond securities?
Yeah. So a couple of things. We did discuss with the developer different types. So we discussed first financial charge on title. I mean, in terms of mortgaging and putting up land for collateral. There's a high risk in that in terms of, I'll just be high level market value fluctuates. So it might not be what we're looking for in terms of the monetary value. Of course, there is a legal process behind that as well, and there are stop orders currently on title. So all of those factors need to be considered. We did also look at a few others. I'm just noting here in my report. So mortgage securities, of course, and then bonds. So we did discuss bonds, and we sought legal counsel, and just in short, there's a high risk, and it is not recommended to go that route for the county at this point in time. We're not there yet.
So you looked at the land as collateral?
Yes, we did.
What was the drawback? Just short time, lawyer fees and all that kind of stuff? or?
It's already mortgaged so many.
So
And it's mortgaged, and I know the value
Yep.
is questionable.
that's correct.
Okay. But not getting this work done is high on mine too. I don't want to see that either. So
yeah.
if the county ends up with the property, at least it would be serviced as far as the stormwater is concerned. And we would be able to do something with it. To me, plus the cash that you have acquired, I don't see the downside for the county. That's a problem that's been ongoing for a long time, and if we got it fixed, I believe it'll be more sellable into the future. I'm not predicting anything going to happen. I'm glad you're here and the talk, but that's a risk I would be willing to take. And that way, we got some cash. This is the best they can do with the land when we know there's a risk there. And then when the next person comes in and wants a break from it, we'll look at it as an individual thing. This isn't in no way a new policy. We're only taking less than the 125%. It's circumstances beyond our control, really.
So if I may, so just,
Okay.
I feel that, as administration, I'll talk about a bit of the mortgage security.
Okay.
I wrote up a memo for myself just so I can regurgitate what I wrote here. So mortgage securities, of course, were discussed. And these securities are generally the weakest form of security. They require enforcement against assets of the developer prior to any realization of money owed. There is significant risk associated with market forces as land values fluctuate, and we can't predict the change. If the value against lands given as security declines or the cost secured by the mortgage against the lands exceeds their value, the county can be left in a deficit. There's something called a deficiency here, and it's a debt due and payable and would further be enhanced by a judgment by the court against the developer in that amount. Collection against the developer may not be possible due to bankruptcy, insolvency, or the fact that the lands were the sole asset of the corporation. Before pursuing foreclosure of the mortgage, Wheatland County would be obliged to commence a lawsuit to quantify the claim. We would have to obtain a judgment or court order providing the remedy. Quantifying claims entail incurring the costs first and then pursuing the recovery of the cost claims through the mortgage. The litigation, according to counsel, legal counsel, takes years. If it is opposed by the developer, before the county would then be able to obtain a judgment and foreclosure order. Another term in this that would come is first financial charge, and that's against the title. Ideally, an encumbrance granted to the county should be registered as such. This means that if it would have priority of being paid out first, so the county would have priority of being paid out first if enforced before any other mortgages or encumbrances. If Wheatland County's first financial interest is the first charge on title, the developer may request for postponement of our financial encumbrance for a mortgage on the lands to finance the development. This postponement will weaken the county's security by postponing its financial interest in the lands and placing itself in second position. The same is true if there is an existing mortgage on title. Unless the county is able to acquire a postponement to give its financial encumbrance priority, county security will be in a weaker position.
Like that one.
So, question. If, and I know you don't want to, we don't want to do this because it gives the county a bad, but if the project isn't done the way that the engineers want it done, and we've taken and everything goes completely sideways, before any land can be developed, we could at that point put a stop order on that so that no land can be developed on that again, like on that project? Can a stop order be applied at that point if they renege on their part of the contract?
That's why there's currently a stop order, right? Like, that's essentially what's happened already in
So could that be
2009.
reapplied? If we lift the stop order, take their $900,000 for this first phase, and we're only talking this one phase because they've talked about the 125 for doing the paving and all that for the Durham Drive and that kind of stuff. So for this one phase, if they do not fulfill their obligations on their contract, and we, on this $1.5 million, and we've got 1.2, or say even 900,000, can we not put a stop order on that project so that nothing can happen at that point?
Yeah, we could.
Okay, thank you.
And just through the chairs, so everyone's aware, this land has been subdivided and is sellable as right now, so just be aware there could be 30 different owners of that land at that time too.
But that would, we could put an all-encompassing stop.
You could,
order.
for sure. Just be aware that it's
Okay.
not just one landowner you might be dealing with.
Well, I will move that we take the 900,000, we underfund this one part of the
With the total
Yeah,
deposit
with-
security at 1,100,000.
yeah,
And
we'll take,
82.
yeah, with what's there. We'll take, I move that I believe, I fully believe that administration can stay on top of this. I understand that we're putting administration into a position where they have to be, probably shouldn't have to be as diligent as I'd like them to be. But I believe that this project has to be kickstarted, and I think we have to take the chance on it. So I will move that we,
We're putting our necks out. Don't cut it off, Steve.
does that make sense? Yes.
Yeah, just for clarity, so the motion is to accept the one, we'll have to look into the logistics on the 282 that was put in place strictly for phase
I
one
think we have to leave that.
asphalt, because that top lift of asphalt would be retained until that asphalt's installed, and then we return it at FAC, which I guess is next year now. So if we're able to access that 282 for the phase two development, we would have the 1.18 million. If not, it would be the 900,000. And just clarity, I guess, to ensure that 900,000 be held until construction completion, because that's still, we could return up to, under our current DA, up to 75% at CCC. Would you like to see that held
I would like to see that held as for the duration of the.
until the final
Yeah,
acceptance
exactly. And
certificate?
as I think as this project goes on, I think they'll add into it, because this would be that 900,000, we hold on to it. We do not release any of it.
Right, okay.
That would then cover the warranty period for
Through the chair, it would, yes.
essentially see the project of phase one to completion.
Correct.
Margaret, do you have a motion to read back, or not yet?
I just need to know which phases this is for, phase one, phase two.
So I believe we're looking at
Phase two.
Phase two.
So this is securities for phase two of the project at, and we're accepting
You're proposing 900,000.
900,000. And can we have like earthworks? We're not doing the whole phase 2 at this point, right? I don't want to say that we're going to do 900,000 for the whole phase 2. But can we do the earthworks and the pumping? Like the earthworks
So the stormwater.
and stormwater. Yeah, stormwater of phase 2. Does that make, like, I don't want to say that the 900,000 for all of phase 2, that's not what we're talking about here. I'm talking stormwater and storm pond for,
Can administration just list off the elements of phase 2
Yeah, so
that
through
were
the chair-
included in the reduced security request?
Yeah, because there is around 2 million in additional costs on top of the earthworks and landscaping. There's asphalt at 1.7 million alone, and then electrical at 200,000. So the 900,000, if we would keep that, it would be needed for the next section of this to finish the project.
right.
So it wouldn't just be for the stormwater. That's where I ask it would stay
Yeah,
in
well, no, I'm just thinking,
existence.
I'd like the stormwater, but this is for the stormwater phase, and then that 900,000 would stay on the whole phase 2.
Definitely. yeah.
But
Need to be added to for the
yeah,
additional
exactly,
work
and
that
it'll have to be added to in order to do phase 2, so I just want to take that $900,000 to sort of guarantee that we're going to get the stormwater down on the remainder of phase 1 and phase 2. And then
The earthworks, okay.
once the earthworks is complete, we still hang on to that $900,000, and then we start working on the road pavement and all that kind of stuff. I don't-
And so
Will that work?
we'll be asking for more securities at that
Sure,
point.
for sure, at that point in
Okay.
time, we can ask for the 125% security yet. I just want the stormwater taken care of, and I believe this gets done that way.
Oh, sorry, yes, so to clarify, that would be for the stormwater. We would ask for the 125% for the asphalt and electrical, around $2 million at that time.
So whatever that was right there, that's what I
Yep,
wanted.
that whole thing, Margaret.
Perfect. You'll have to watch the video a few times.
The general is for phase 2, this 900,000 is for the stormwater.
components.
Portion of.
Earthworks
And retained
and landscaping.
Further to be retained until completion.
Yeah.
Is there more specific wording that administration can recommend?
You guys will lift the stop with this. If this is accepted, then you guys will lift the stop work order on this, and we're good to go?
We will have to.
Yep, perfect.
Earthworks and landscaping?
Earthworks, sorry. So it should be for the 900,000 for the earthworks, the underground, and the landscaping. All three components, leaving out the asphalt and the electrical.
Well, how much short are we then on securities from our policy?
500,000.
80%, maybe 70%,
We're at 80.
give or take. The calculator.
Well, I think it's more than that.
For 693 according to the letter.
Yeah, around 80%.
And that's first pay thing, is there a cost but not all in, or?
Sorry, could you repeat that, Deputy Reeve?
You'll have to rearrange the title or some, so where the county's first paid? What is the cost of doing that, or is that a viable option, or? You had mentioned about,
Moving the caveats around. It's not gonna,
Yeah.
can't do that.
can we apply that, or is, what, is there, what's the dynamics of it?
So in terms of the first move I would do would be to, regroup here and then look at the orders and remove those stop orders so that the stop work order can remove. In terms of caveats and moving those around, I don't believe I can really touch that at this point, but the orders are what's really important for this to get those off. So we would do that sooner rather than later so that this work can commence.
So presently, we don't have a caveat where the county's first paid out of the mortgages, out of any proceedings.
Not that I'm aware of, but I'd have to look into that, but I don't
I
think
believe
so.
we had full security
Yeah.
for phase 1.
Yeah.
Steve?
Yeah, if I may, Canadian Western Bank is in first position. They won't relinquish that to let the county go in front. If the county goes in front, they won't advance the money, no work is done, so.
That's the answer.
Yep.
And I think what we're hearing is it's maybe not worth pursuing that. Because if we look at the value of that land, if things go south,
That's why you want to be first.
right, but that's not. Can administration just review your most recent estimates for the earthworks, underground, and landscaping? And estimate ballpark?
Yeah, so through the chair, we had a submittal from, through the developer from Idea Group. We have had this revised, which we haven't confirmed with the Idea Group, so I can give the numbers that they submitted or our estimates on what we feel.
Can you give both, just to give a
Okay,
sense?
sure.
So
the
the developer submitted,
Developer submitted for earthworks was 661,000, underground 541,000, asphalt 1.671 million, landscaping 496,000, and electrical 231,000. We estimate earthworks to be 824,000, underground is 574,000, asphalt is the same, landscaping is 707,000, electrical is the same, and we put a 8% engineering cost because of our own reviews and that sort of thing of 288,000. So total of about 4 million from our estimates before that.
and those are just updated based on being more recent and.
Correct, yep.
Has the developer been able to have a look at those new estimates?
I don't believe they've been submitted to them yet.
Oh, okay, all right, sorry. Just a question about the landscaping. I'm assuming we're talking about different landscaping than like our typical landscaping where you're putting in, do you know what I'm getting at? Because I'm just looking at, could that be partitioned out? If it's finalizing land, do you know where I'm coming from? I don't know if you can speak to that.
Yeah, through the chair, I don't believe the majority of that was trees and shrubs. It was more landscaping of the berms for the storm ponds and that sort of thing. So actually creating the berms, not only earthworks on that as well. And like I say, it's a very high level estimate we received here, so we worked off the information we had.
So just so council is aware of percentages, at the 125% that we have it's in policy.
Yes.
We would only be retaining 48% securities on that. Go at 100%, it's maybe 53%. Any further discussion there? Do we have a final motion, just for clarity?
Does Wheatland County accept securities in the amount of $900,000 for earthworks, landscaping, and underground project? And I'll
Any discussion? So I do have, I have to voice, I do have some concerns about this. We have other developments in the county where we've had stop orders or issues surrounding the completion of projects that can impact ratepayers. I do have a little bit of a concern just with the precedent that we're setting with this as well. I realize it's a unique, like I'm cognizant of the unique aspects of this and how it's already impacting ratepayers, so that's what I'm trying to weigh. So.
Last time we did this, they walked away from it anyways. We spent 2 days arguing about it.
Just thinking of a fairly large development that we have currently that I don't believe we have securities on and our ratepayers are paying.
This development is fixing up a problem that spans other existing. Something that has to be done. I don't like the price tag on it, but the same sense goes south, we got half of it done. Right, because we got the securities for 48%, I said. I have a problem with it, but I can support it. This is something that has to be done. It's not just for this particular property per se, it's for the whole strip there. And it's for the people across the road that are having problems too, and our own ratepayers. Hopefully this would get it fixed up. Like Ben said, we've spent a lot of time on this and it didn't work last time. I'm thinking it will work this time.
Any other questions or discussion? Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried.
Thanks for coming in, Steve.
I realize if this doesn't work, I'm never going to get reelected. Just understand that.
Thank you for coming in. Do we want to have lunch and then move back in camera? Because we do need to pull a staff member to finish our human resource policy part. Why don't we break for lunch?
Let's eat lunch. I'm starving.
And then can we set a time that we'll reconvene so that we can have staff prepared for our upcoming closed sessions?
12:30?
Yeah, I was wondering if 12:30. Perfect. Okay. So we're going to break for lunch until 12:30 and then we'll come back and move into closed session.
12:30 or 12:15?
I'll move us out of camera. All in favor? Motion is carried. I think we have a couple of motions arising from the closed session.
Through the chair, I would move that the General Manager of Community and Development Services evaluate county-owned land along the CPR and highway corridors for redesignation for both light and heavy industrial sites. If we could do that as soon as possible.
Any questions or discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried.
And I'll move that council approve that administration look into options for servicing of water and wastewater on the west side of the county.
Investigate?
Investigate options, that's,
Options
yes,
for water,
yeah,
wastewater?
yeah.
Any questions or discussion? You said on the west side of the county.
West side of the county, yes. Side of the county.
Any questions or discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried. I believe that's it. A motion to adjourn. Councillor Wilson has moved to adjourn. All in favor? Motion carried. Happy combining.
Thank you.